I'm going to call to order the Board of Commissioners regular meeting for May the 16th, 2011. I'd ask for everyone to stand for the presentation of colors by the Cold Springs United Methodist Church Cub Scout Pack 5.
Prepare those colors. Color guards pose colors. Color guards salute. Will you please join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Color guards retrieve colors.
At this time, I call on Pastor Tim Yates from Eastside Baptist Church for the invocation.
Let us pray. Father, we call upon your name tonight in the name of Jesus. We pray for this meeting tonight, Father. We ask that you would grant wisdom to these commissioners for every decision that they make. Father, we also pray and ask your blessings upon this community. We ask you to bless us economically, Father, with good paying jobs for those that need them. We ask you to bless us with the resources to keep our teachers in the classroom. Most of all, Father, I pray that as a community we would turn our hearts to you. And as we do this, that you would bless us in the way that you desire to. We ask these things from you, Father, and I thank you that you've heard my prayer tonight. And I ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. The young men from the Cub Scout Pack would like to come forward and introduce yourself to everybody. When you come forward, that microphone's a little bit too high for you, so you can move it down if you'd like. You can come on up. There you go. Why don't you speak into the microphone and so we all can hear.
My name is Byron Presley. I go to Mount Pleasant Elementary School, and my parents' names are Jason and Candy Presley.
Thank you.
My
Byron,
name is...
I'm sorry. If you want to come over here, Commissioner Burge has a pen for you. Yes, sir.
My name is Jay Owens. I go to Mount Pleasant Elementary School. My parents are Angie and Lee Copeland.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Remy Johnson. I go to Mount Pleasant Elementary School. My parents' names are Roger and Christy.
Thank you. We have before us the minutes that were presented to or sent out for March the 21st, April the 4th, and April 18th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next matter we have is the agenda that we have before us, including the changes to the agenda, which is some additional information which is accompanying the agenda. Do we have is a resolution requesting assistance with the extension of Raging Ridge Road. That's on G6 that I'll talk about later this evening. With the agenda that we have before us, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next we have is informal public comments, and I have 3 cards. First one is Mr. Wayne McDonald. Mr. McDonald, if you will come forward, please state your address and let us know what you're wanting to talk about.
Okay, my name is Wayne McDonald. My
You can, I'm sorry, you can move that.
address is 301 Arborfield Drive in Randleman, North Carolina, and I'm here to talk about the Old Bethel School project. Woodson University contacted me about doing a rehab on the old school, making it for university, and I think maybe the Midland City Hall might have some interest for the city in doing some things there. And I brought a couple booklets on sort of what we do. Yes, that's one of them. And it sort of gives you an idea of what we do with these old structures. We try to maintain the charm and character of them and do what I call a fusion of the old and the new. If the old is there, we maintain all that, but we bring in the new with electrical, the HVAC, what it takes to make it livable. And also, we try to keep that character, to keep it warm. We do a lot of landscape things, as you'll see in those pictures, what we try to do to make it to where people want to be there. And I think this school has a lot of potential to do that with, and I think we can make something out of it that the county will be proud of, plus the city of Midland. So that's what we're here to do, and that's what Dr. Fleming had contacted me about doing. He'd seen some of the projects that I'd done.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Mr. McDonald would like to have these books back
Yes,
soon,
please.
in a few minutes, so.
Please, and if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have about what we intend to do.
Any questions at this time? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next that I have is Mr. Wise, Richard Wise.
Good evening, County Commissioners. My name is Richard Wise. I live in Bethel Glen in Midland. I'd like to come up and talk to you about the Bethel School. I'm also a town council member for the town of Midland. I think this is one of the greatest opportunities for Midland to maybe move ahead and get rid of an eyesore that we've had for quite some time down there. I definitely recommend that Woodson University. I've talked to both gentlemen, the Wayne and also Dr. Fleming, and they both seem that they can do a very good job remodeling this school and making it worthwhile for students to go to. And I think this would be a great opportunity for the students that used to go to this school be able to walk through this school again as a university. And I really appreciate you giving it a good consideration on this bid here, and hopefully you'll make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Next I have is Mr. Mike Sims. Mr. Sims?
Good evening. My name is Mike Sims. I'm a member of the APAC, which is a body that you guys have appointed to address animal issues in the county. I wanted to thank you guys for allowing me to speak this evening. I also wanted to thank you for putting the APAC together and allowing me to serve as a part of that. I wanted to thank you guys for considering the resolution that we have on the table. I know it's been a very arduous task. It's taken us a long time, a lot of excitement generated around this issue, and I encourage you guys to continue supporting this resolution. I will say that it's been kind of frustrating. I came onto this body back in, about a year ago now, and there was a lot of excitement going on at that time, a lot of opportunity. And in December, we put the resolution together. And in January, there was a retreat for the Board of Commissioners. And I was very concerned that there was no, there was no agenda for us to, tie into, at least not that I was able to find. Now, I may have just overlooked it, but I've asked a couple of folks for an agenda. I was not able to find it. So I was not able to attend to understand the discussion around this topic and to add any feedback that I might be able to add. But again, my point tonight is simply to thank you guys for continuing to consider it, to keep it on the agenda. I know it's on one of your agendas tonight. I don't know which one, but I know it's there. And I appreciate all the consideration and all the time you guys are putting into this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Next we have is Mrs. Ann Cannon.
Good
You can-
evening.
you can move it down.
Okay, and thank you for letting me come and speak with you all this evening. I'm also a part of the AAPAC task force, and I also appreciate you all's time and effort that you've put into this. It has been a long and arduous process, but it has come from the heart, and we appreciate your consideration. What I wanted to ask of you all this evening is to further consider the resolution that we have presented to you. The resolution is just a beginning of what we want to do and how we want to improve the existing system that Cabarrus County has now of housing and sheltering, feeding, and processing animals that have been abandoned or picked up or strays. I am part of a rescue group. I have been rescuing animals for the past, I guess, 8 years. The rescue groups, I can assure you, are very, very knowledgeable of the process of what goes through with getting an animal off the streets. I know our organization, just ours, I can only speak for Cabarrus Pet Society, but I can guarantee you that it's multiplied multiple times by other rescue groups. But basically, we save 120 animals a year. That 120 animals a year are not in the shelter. We house them, we feed them, we spay them, we neuter them. The county does not put one single penny toward those animals. Now, of those 120 per year that we take out of the system that you all don't have to pay for or deal with, none of those will ever be mommies and daddies, ever. So you can only calculate thousands of animals that do not come on the street because of all of the efforts that these rescue groups put into all of this. Not to mention the increase in quality of the life of our community because these animals are not running about in the streets. I cannot give you the best account there is of the quality of the life of the people who have adopted those animals. So we do an awful lot with the quality of life. But I do want you all to know that the rescue groups, they don't take a penny out of the county. We don't ask for any money. It's all volunteer work, and it's hard work. It's 24 hours a day. It isn't an 8 to 5 job. So these volunteers use the passion that they have to do this. And we're really not asking much from the commissioners with this task force resolution. What we are asking for is for you all to seriously consider the resolution and our suggestions for improving and making more efficient the system that we have now at the animal shelter. And it's a good one, but it needs improving all the time. And we're willing to jump to that task, and we can do it. We know we can do it, but we do need your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
No, thank you. Next card, or last card that I have is Mr. Larry Marlowe.
See if I can get real nervous like I usually do. I'm Larry Marlowe. I live at 664 Odell School Road. Remember, tomorrow is tax vote day. I have a couple questions. The county needs an extra $5 million next year to pay for the schools, etc. And they're going to get the money. They got to have the money. So, but if the money will come from the increase in sales tax if you go to the polls tomorrow and vote for it. And I have a question for you. If I told you you would get $50 or $100 or maybe $200 to vote for the tax increase, would you? Well, that's what you'll save if you vote for it tomorrow, what you won't have to pay for in property tax next year. So please go vote. Get your neighbors, write it down right now so you don't come up and say, man, I forgot to vote. So go vote. So if your tax increase, property tax goes up, it's your own fault. So please vote for it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marlowe. Next matter we have is old business, E1, which is found on page 39 of the agenda, is a resolution authorizing auction sale of the old Bethel School property, update and bid award. I will turn it over to Mr. Downs.
You sort of set the stage, as Mr. Chairman, as you stated, the resolution was published. We received two sealed bids, and they were opened up on the appropriate date. We have one from Woodson University and Mr. Fleming, and then we also have one from Mike Wallace The particulars of both of those bids are in your packets there. Both parties are here to answer any of the questions that you have. And I'll leave it at that.
Are there any questions for Mr. Downs at this time? Thank you. Do we have any questions? Do you have any questions for Mr. Fleming, or excuse me, Dr. Fleming or Mr. Wallace? I have a couple of questions for Dr. Fleming. Dr. Fleming, if you don't mind coming up. One of the concerns from the county is being able to get the property up to code or to make certain that no further damage is done to the building. What are your thoughts about getting that taken care of, and what's the time frame you're looking at getting that taken care of?
Thank you. First of all, thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Through our conversation with our facilities management consultant, as well as Mr. McDonald, we think that within a 120-day due diligence period, we can identify those issues that need to be immediately rectified. Within about 30 days to 60 days after closure of the award, we'll have property management with regard to the shrubbery or maintenance of the ground of that facility. There are some other issues that are a bit more systemic based upon the feasibility study that the county completed some time ago, and without the ability to go into the facility and invest those dollars into having folk identify the major concerns immediately, I can intelligently speak to what needs to be rectified first.
Okay. Okay, and Woodson is going to partner. What's the relationship with Woodson as well as Wharton Gladden and Company?
Wharton Gladden and Company is a private equity firm located in Greensboro, North Carolina, and we are in a relationship with them where they're assisting to identify the necessary capital to complete the renovation project at Old Bethel School.
Okay. Are there any other questions based on mine?
During the due diligence phase and before closure, would you have assurances of the finances in order to do the renovation?
Within the 120-day period is when we'll finalize that.
That's what I mean. Before
Yes.
we would close, you would be able to provide assurances that you
Yes.
have the backing in order to renovate the building.
Yes.
I just was following up on what you said. That's why I was
Certainly.
clarifying that comment.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you, Dr. Fleming.
Thank you.
We have before us the resolution, or actually, it's we can either accept or deny the highest bid or the bid proposal, or accept the bid either from Woodson or from Mr. Wallace. Is there a motion at this point in time or any discussion at this time?
And I've had a chance to talk to Dr. Fleming, sit down with him, and it's very impressive of what they've got planned to do there. And I think it branches out beyond just Concord and just Cabarrus County, but looking at regional, also looking at potentially going national with some distance learning, I believe, as part of their overall plans. But I've not heard anything on, I guess it may be in our packet here, as far as Mr. Wallace, I know, put a bid in what his plans were as well.
Okay.
Well, he's here. I think he's been.
Mr. Wallace, would you like to come up and tell us about your plans, please?
Well, thank you very much, first of all, for allowing me to speak. And in regards to the plans for the property, I think, as everyone knows, the property's been sitting dormant for about 6 years. It's in quite a disarray at this moment. So I don't know that there's a definitive plan in place. As you read in my bid proposal, due to the economic times, commercial real estate, it's very hard to put out there and say, we're going to do this. There's been a lot of thought in regards to what the property can be used for. It's varied anywhere from office building to renting it out for a movie studio, certain areas of that. There's been talk that a tank facility, environmentally friendly tanks being built and construction on the property, utilizing the gymnasium area along with the office buildings. So what we would like to do is have an expedited fashion. I think if you read in our bid proposal that once we've agreed if we're going to proceed with the property, of course, everything is a cash sale. It's personally financed. that 2 weeks after the closing of the property, there will be a total environmental cleanup issue put in place. And clarify the word environmental issues. We've had both an asbestos removal and a lead removal company out there. And as long as there's not demolition that takes place on this property at this present time, there is no environmental concerns. So what we plan on doing is putting a cleanup program in effect, creating a nice curb appeal on the property. First of all, does everyone have a copy of that? So I don't really need to go through that in detail. But
On page 93 of our agenda.
and then 2 weeks after, basically about a month after the actual closing, money transfers, then we will put in a total cleanup process. And that will start immediately. That will start within a month after closing. That will take the inside of the building, which is just totally destroyed. I surveyed the building with some county officials to make sure what status it's in, get the cleanup of the property outside, secure the parking lots, and seal up some windows and doors and all that we can put a plan in place. So that's the best I can honestly tell you, sir. That's an honest opinion of what's going to take place. The biggest thing we want to do is take that piece of property, turn it into a community asset down the road, something that it creates a good revenue tax base, put some jobs in there, and takes what has been sitting a 6-year-old or building that's been sitting for 6 years, it looks like, and turn it into something. So that's the best honest answer I can give you what's going on there.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Reeser, do you have a question?
I don't have a question. I just comment. I want to say, I appreciate your bid, Mr. Wallace's interest and Dr. Fleming's interest. And I have to say I was impressed with Dr. Fleming's organization and exactly what he intends to do with the property and a lot of the research that's went in with it and kind of laid out exactly what he intends to do. Not saying that you don't. I just, I think, with the town of Midland, supporting the Woodson University as purchaser of this property, I think it would be a good move for the county to sell this property for the highest bidder to Woodson University.
Would that be in the form of a motion?
Sure.
Okay.
I move that.
We have a motion to accept the bid of Woodson University in the amount of $10,000 for the transfer to Woodson, contingent upon, I would say, the working out of the details by the county manager and the attorney. We have a motion. Do we have a second to that motion?
And I'll second add to that I appreciate Mr. Wallace putting in a bid, because I think that both of them, coming forth and being willing to do something with the property is great. But I think that Dr. Fleming and them are a little bit further down the road and have the support of the town of Midland. And I would second that motion then.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. If we can get that, just, Mr. Cook, if you will get with Mr. Day and Dr. Fleming to make certain that gets moved forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next matter we have is the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, but I also want to point out, because we had a couple of speakers tonight that were speaking in reference to the resolution regarding animal services, that it is for approval in the consent agenda, so it will not be considered separately, but it will be approved when we approve the consent agenda. We'll let the speakers know that tonight that are here.
Mrs.
Also,
Cannon,
the
Mr.
community know.
Sims, did you?
Yeah.
What y'all spoke on is under the consent agenda under F1. Okay.
So it'll be approved with our vote, and I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. We have a second. I'll make a second to that motion. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next that we have is G1, which is found on page 86, or 186 of our agenda, Youth Council Report on Activities. At this time, we have, let me get it here. Mrs. Jones, Ms. Dean, and Cameron Watson. Would y'all like to come up and tell us what's going on in the Youth Council?
Good evening. My name is Elena Dean, and also here with us is Cameron Watson. We are here to present the Youth Council's biannual report to the commissioners, county manager, and staff. I chose personally to be involved in the Youth Council because I'm interested in local government and I hope to be in your shoes one day. Our first members were appointed in February 2011. We currently have vacant positions at Cox Mill High School, Concord High School, and one at large. Many of them are also at this meeting, and if they could please stand. Recently at our meetings, we have identified issues using a technique similar to the one used at your commissioners' retreat, implementing the sticky board to identify issues facing our county. Top issues we identified were school, home, society, and apathy. Also at our meetings, we have engaged in educational activities, these including a budget activity using Hershey Kisses, an advocacy activity, and local government Jeopardy. These were all fun and helped educate us about our local government. Other activities we have done are an ice cream social where we got to know each other better. We also did treat bags for Meals on Wheels, and we had a few volunteers at the Live It Up Cabarrus event.
As Elena previously stated, we have a few open positions. In efforts to fill these positions, we have developed a public service announcement that will be airing in schools across the county in order to recruit new members. David Baxter helped us with this public service announcement, and we really appreciate his support. On July 25th, we will be holding elections for the officers, leadership offices in the council. Also, I hope y'all all will be checking your mailboxes for an invitation to the council banquet that will be held in the barn at Franklin Park, so be looking for that. We would also like to play an active role in the Association for County Commissioners meeting that will be held in August in Concord. And we are developing a Facebook page and website that will be linked to the county's new website. So if you're on the computer anytime soon, be looking for that. And I became involved in the Youth Council because I have an interest in political sciences for undergraduate studies in college. So thank y'all for your time and support, and have a nice evening.
Before y'all step down, could you introduce who is here so we know who they are on the council? Or if they would like to come forward. And what's important is y'all are coming from different schools. So Cameron, can you tell us what school you are?
Yes, sir. I'm representing Northwest Cabarrus.
Thanks, sir. And Mrs. Dean?
And I'm representing J.M. Robinson High School.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Taylor Furr, and I'm from Hickory Ridge High School.
I'm Ian Smith, and I'm representing Central Cabarrus High School.
I'm Sydney San Jose, and I'm representing J.M. Robinson High School.
Daniel Hicks, representing A.O. Brown High School.
I'm T-Shawn Davidson, and I represent A.O. Brown High School.
My name is Ella Wycliffe, and I'm representing Mount Pleasant High School.
My name is Seth Bollenbecker, and I'm also representing Mount Pleasant High School.
My name is Ryan Essick, and I'm representing Hickory Ridge High School.
My name is Ryan Himes, and I'm representing Central Cabarrus High School.
Thank y'all for doing this, and thank you for all you're doing. We look forward to hearing from you for future, and I know that Commissioner Meismer is very involved in y'all's meetings and in y'all's organizations.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and they've been an excellent group to get to know one another, being from different schools and getting together to get to know one another and talk about things going on, and you hear them compare their stories and their schools, and so it's an excellent group. I appreciate all you guys do.
Thank y'all. Next we have is G2, which is the Library Literacy Council agreement. And as I said in the work session, and I want to say again, reiterate tonight, is one of my partners is on the board, and my wife is on the board as well, so that if that is a point that I need to recuse myself, I will do that. But please let me know. I will turn it over to Mrs. at this time.
Good evening. Before you, you have a proposal from the Cabarrus Literacy Council, and what that proposal does is proposes that the library administer the adult basic literacy program for the Literacy Council. My interest lies in that not only am I the library director, but I'm also on the Literacy Council board as well. A few months ago, both of the paid staff of the Cabarrus Literacy Council announced at the same time that they would both be leaving due to personal reasons. They're both moving, and they will leave their employment with the Literacy Council as of June 30th. So basically, the Literacy Council Board was left with some decisions that had to be made, and after discussing several different options, we decided that the best way to continue the adult basic literacy program was to allow the library to administer it in conjunction with the library's family literacy program that we administer through Smart Start funds. Basically, what the adult basic literacy program does is it targets the nearly 22,000 people, adults, in Cabarrus County that have serious literacy issues. The program is important. It not only teaches those people how to read and improves them on a personal level, but it also improves the workforce in Cabarrus County. A literate workforce is obviously a better workforce. Once the library assumes administration of the basic literacy program, what we'll do is we'll provide assessments for the students, we'll train the tutors, we'll recruit the tutors, we'll match them up, and then we'll provide a safe place for everyone to have the tutoring take place. This Cabarrus Literacy Council will still exist. Basically, what they'll do is they'll be providing funding for the library to administer the program. They'll also be in charge of administering any other literacy programs and initiatives that take place in the county. And very importantly, they'll be bringing awareness to the literacy issues that surround Cabarrus County by speaking at public events and also doing a lot of community fundraising. Both the library and the Literacy Council think this is a very good partnership for us all.
Any questions for Mrs. Ura? I've got a couple. What happens if someone wants to support the Literacy Council? Is it still a tax donation?
The Literacy Council is a 501c3 organization. We do have a website, and we do have several board members here, Christy Wilhelm and Ben McNeely and Darcy White. All of us can take your donations, and
But it continues to be a 501c3?
Absolutely. It doesn't affect it at all.
And this is not affecting the county's budget?
It does not affect the county's budget at all. Cost-free for the county.
Okay. And what happens if there's another program other than the Adult Basic Literacy Program that is going to be started through the Literacy Council? What happens then?
Then the Literacy Council will need to decide the best way to administer that program, whether it's through a volunteer who administers it or through paid staff, and the Literacy Council would handle that with either themselves or by partnering with another organization.
With the director and I guess the assistant director, I don't know what the title of the second person was, but
I don't know.
With the director and this second person stepping down, does that add to your responsibilities that takes away from the county libraries?
It will add a few startup issues to my responsibilities, which will quickly be turned over to the paid staff.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve the agreement between the county and the Cabarrus Literacy Council and authorize the county manager to execute the contract on behalf of the county, subject to reviews and revisions by the county attorney?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I would like that once this process gets started, if we can get an update as to how it's going and how it's really affecting people, because I think that's the most important thing, is that what are the goals and where are we headed with it?
Absolutely, and one of the things within the proposal states that the Literacy Council Board will present you all with an annual strategic plan for the program as well.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have is on page 195, which is G3, is Solid Waste Cabarrus County Construction and Demolition Landfill. Future operations. I will turn it over to Mr. Grant, our Sustainability Manager.
Good evening. As we discussed during the work session, the Cabarrus County Construction and Demolition Landfill has a very limited amount of airspace left in its cell. A reduction in revenue and increased environmental compliance costs has created a situation in which a contribution from the general fund of at least $1.8 to $2.6 million will be required. This is whether we expand or even close the landfill. State regulations call for the Cabarrus County landfill to maintain a post-closure balance in a range of $3.5 to $4.5 million based on what option we proceed, and currently we do not have enough in the enterprise fund to cover this. the closure post-closure balance to be used for completing final closure of the landfill and to conduct environmental monitoring of the landfill for 30 years after final closure is the reason why we need to carry this balance. Based on these two options, it would probably make most sense to close the landfill. Recently, Greenway Waste Solutions has approached us and presented us with a potential third option, a public-private partnership agreement with Cabarrus County. What Greenway Waste Solution is proposing would continue to keep the landfill open, expand the amount of construction and demolition material that is recycled, and construct and operate a Type 3 compost operation. Their proposal would also eliminate the need for the general fund to make any contributions to the landfill. Additional savings potentially could be realized in the amount of $5 million to the county if we continue this operating agreement for the next 30 years. I'm asking the Board of Commissioners to consider approving a memorandum of understanding between Cabarrus County and Greenway Waste Solutions. This MOU would allow us to continue to work with the North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources towards obtaining a permit modification and to also work towards obtaining a construction permit for the landfill expansion. There's no guarantee that they'll approve this expansion, and if this is the case, the MOU would be terminated. It was requested at the work session that supplemental information be provided concerning Greenway Waste Solutions Highway 49 C&D landfill in Harrisburg. This information has been included in the agenda package. At this time, I'd take any questions if there are any.
Are there any questions for Mr. Grant?
What does it mean on here that the county will remain the permit holder of this facility?
We currently, Cabarrus County is under the current permit, and we would continue to be owner of that permit with that responsibility.
So the county will be responsible for that permit and whatever goes in there?
That is true.
What makes the county not be responsible for what this other company goes out there and does?
We're going to have to put in the contract stipulations, making sure that they do make sure to comply with all the regulations. They're going to have to comply with the same regulations that they currently do at their facilities. They'll be under audits through North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources. And I am proposing that we do moderate that facility in some sort of fashion.
Will they be bonded or insured to be sure that the county don't have to come back and clean up what they do?
Yeah, I believe we're going to have to put that in the contract, yes.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Burridge. I think that bonding, it's either bonding or insurance, something like that would cover that, in that event. I think it would be only prudent in the situation.
So if the landfill operates for the next 20 or 30 years, and then they have to maintain this facility for another 30, what happens after, the landfill closes, they decide they don't want to take care of it for the remainder of the 30 years? As a business, they dissolve the corporation and then just walk away. The county will be liable at that point?
Well, that's part of the reason that we maintain the post-closure balance that we're going to have to keep. It won't be as much as if we were maintaining it, but we'll have to keep some in there.
For county dollars we'll have to keep there?
That we currently have right now, we would have to.
And then who's going to make up the remaining amount? If they're using the facility and not going to have to contribute?
Maybe I can help a little bit. Right now, I guess the detailed answer to those questions don't exist, which is the purpose of the MOU. So obviously, we would not recommend entering into a contract where the county's interests are not thoroughly protected and that there aren't monetary guarantees in place, whether it's a bond, whether it's cash on deposit in a bank, whatever it needs to be. So it's important to remember that the decision you're making tonight is not a final decision. It's simply one where more information is going to be gathered by both parties, and if either party is not satisfied with what the final product is or can't agree on what it should look like, then obviously it won't happen. So I just want to make sure it's clear that you don't feel like all those questions have to be answered tonight. There's going to be many questions that come up as a result of the process itself. And we'll keep you apprised of that process should you vote to go on. But you will have opportunities to hear both the report from the county attorney and any other consultants that we have to work with to come up with the final product.
Yeah, this MOU, we need this to kind of get started. We need to, first of all, get a permit modification from the state in order to expand our existing cell. Once we have that, we need to go to Diener as well to get their approval to do a construction of the expanded cell. And that's going to take a period of time. In the meantime, we'll start working on a contract and start working on all these issues that you discussed.
Okay. With that being said, how much has to be in the post-closure fund, 3.5 to 4.5?
Yes, depending on whether we close up in the next couple months or whether we expand ourselves, it's either 3.5 if we close now, 4.5 if we expand on our own.
Do we have that in an account now?
No, that full amount of money is not there, and that would be the responsibility of our partner should we move forward with this.
How much is in the account now?
We're short, yeah, we're $2.2 million. We're short depending, if we close now, the general fund's got to contribute about $1.8 million. If we expanded, that contribution would be upwards of $2.6, $2.7 million.
Okay. I'm slightly confused because it seems like from the last meeting that this is going to have to be something decided on rather quick. And, you know, if we knew all along that we're going to have to shut this facility down, why don't we have the money in the account?
The money's not there because the business is off as a result of the recession.
Revenue's been down over the last couple of years, and also the environmental compliance has gone up over the last couple of years, which is creating an increase in construction costs for a landfill.
You talked about the enterprise fund. Why don't you explain what that is and where those monies come from?
The enterprise fund is a separate fund from the general fund, and it's based on revenue that is received from the landfill. It was a self-supporting fund in operation. And it was able to self-support itself for the longest time. But like I said, changes in regulations, increases in what we need to maintain for the post-closure fund has increased. And like I said, compliance costs has increased. So, and then with the combination of the lack of revenue coming in due to the economy, we're not able to self-support ourselves going forward.
Any other questions for Mr. Grant?
I guess because I'm looking at the different options and I see that if we don't do the partnership, what you're saying is that, and put it in real dollars for folks, is that we're looking at, could be as much as a penny tax increase just from the general fund that we would have to put into it in order to achieve what we needed to achieve to have the fund balance to maintain that.
I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, anywhere from what, 1.8 to about $2.8 million that we would have to have immediately. And have to put into this year's budget to put across to there. And we've got the option there of being able to save that money, the taxpayers that money. So I think that's the biggest thing people realize. That's the biggest thing that jumps out at me, is an opportunity to save the county a lot of money.
Any other questions?
I think that's the same thing that I said 2 weeks ago when we first talked about it. This is a big impact on the budget. This is a memorandum of understanding, which just gives you the authority to explore the options and to continue to negotiate with the firm and with all the regulatory agencies who are going to make sure that everything gets done correctly out there. So I would most definitely be in favor of continuing the conversation. So I would place that in the form of a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Cabarrus County and Greenway Waste Solutions.
I'll second that.
Before we go any further, I would like to reiterate what I said last time. There was a group of concerned citizens that contacted me regarding the landfill that's out on Highway 49, the current operation. For 10 years, this landfill was not in compliance with regulations. For 10 years. 2 years ago, the citizens attended a town council meeting and requested that this landfill, be required to comply with the regulations. At that point, Mr. Griffin and the town of Harrisburg agreed that he needed to build a berm along the back of the property there. At that point, it was not done. 2 years later, it was not done. If you imagine riding by BFI landfill and seeing no berm there, being able to see directly into the landfill, that's exactly how it is. Mr. Griffin and his company had piled the sheetrock, the demolition sheetrock, very high within the landfill. The residents across the street had to look at this day in and day out. At the previous meeting, there was a question asked whether this was health concern or not. Once Mr. Griffin began the process of grinding this sheetrock, because there's a very minor berm now, the sheetrock dusting blows over to the residents on the other side of the street, blanketing their house, their front porch, their vehicles. And I have to say that's an air quality issue. Also, before the grinding took place, the sheetrock, the purple sheetrock, whenever it would rain, purple water would run down and pool in front of these homes. Now, these homes are on well water. I would have to argue that that is a health issue. And I understand that there has been reports from NC Diener that says there's no violations, and I would have to argue that whenever they come out to inspect, I'm sure they're not grinding sheetrock at that time to have this blow over to the neighbors' homes. I can assure you that this is not going on whenever they come to inspect. I'm coming before you with concerns of the citizens, and I am telling you that this is a health concern. If this company cannot comply with these regulations, what kind of situation is it going to put this county in? And 20 and 30 years from now, we're going to end up having to foot more of the bill than we are now. It's going to put us in a bad position. The city of Concord was doing business with Mr. Griffin and his complex out there on Highway 49. At the time, the city was collecting the limbs and the brush, and Mr. Griffin was grinding these items for them. Their bill kept going up, and they wondered why, so they did an investigation. He was charging them grinding fees on items he was not grinding, leaves, grass clippings. As soon as they dropped contract with him, they saved $100,000. Now, he's already burnt one government. I don't think he should burn another. Also, I would like to ask why there's not a bid process for this. It seems kind of strange that all of a sudden, for months, this proposal comes about, and none of us knew anything about it. It seems like there would have been a bid process. I don't know if there's any sort of state regulations, and the county attorney might be able to touch on this. I don't know if there's any regulations where at a certain amount, dollar amount for a project, whether or not there's state regulations, whether it needs to be bid out or not. I don't know. And one thing I do have a question is whether or not they're going to rent this property from us, or is it just going to be given to them to be used? Is that correct?
We're still, the initial thought was just for all the services that they're providing in return for operating on our property.
Well, there's a lot that needs to be worked out before I can support any memorandum of agreement as we are stepping in that direction. You might say that we don't have these details worked out yet, but we are headed in that direction, and there's no reason for us to head there now. And, over the course of the past 2 weeks, there's been documents collected that argue and try to bias the argument into agreeing for the commissioners to agree on this memorandum. The county manager has put together these documents, include them in the packet, but not once have you tried to collect any documents on the other end. I don't think any of the residents out there have been contacted to see about their feelings. You didn't get anything on the other side of the argument. And I think that's something that a fair, unbiased opinion as a county manager, you should have that, both sides of the argument, and that's for us to decide. It's for us to decide which way the argument goes. Sometimes I wonder if you're confused if you're the sixth commissioner or if you're the county manager hired by the county
Commissioner
commissioners.
Meisner, you're stepping out of bounds there.
I've got to say it, and this is my opinion. So that's what I was placed here to do.
Mr. Chairman? I'll call the question.
One thing that, your concerns at the last work session were raised, and I took it upon myself to go out there at least twice, if not 3 times, to see what this berm looked like and what these trees look like. And I've gone to the gate of C&D Construction Highway 49. I've gone around Mulberry Road and then on Homestead. And for the life of me, the only thing that I can see is about 30 feet where the berm is, and other than that, it's very dense woods. And I find it ironic that at the very end of Homestead is where you live, and that has yet to be brought up.
There is.
My question is, why didn't you bring up the fact that you live over there and tell us what your own personal,
It's-
what your own personal opinion is and how you knew it was there.
I can
That's what
tell
I'm
you-
just trying to figure
I
out.
can tell you that I live further on down the street, so I am not affected by this. There is a number of people out there that are not my family, directly across the street as well. So the ones I'm advocating for are not necessarily my family. I do live on down the street, and that's how I personally know about this situation. That's how it personally affects me, and the residents there directly across the street are affected by this, and they are not family.
Well, and
Okay.
the point I'm making is that had you told us ahead of time that you live out there and this is how you know about this,
I
that's
told our
important.
county manager that about 6 months ago.
Well, we have 4 of us up here, and this is the first time I knew about it was when I went out and drove out there and I saw it on the mailbox.
And it's-
that's what I'm trying to say is, it's just like earlier when I was talking about the Literacy Council, we need to be upfront with everybody as to what our involvements are so that the 5 of us understand where we're coming from on a certain issue. So that I would have liked to have known that, because then I can understand how you have seen it, whether it's day in and day out, whether it's month in and month out. The times that I went out there, I did see the, I call it gypsum board, but whatever the board
It
is.
is, it's gypsum board.
Okay, gypsum board. I did see it from the front, but I did not see it from back on Mulberry or even on some driveways that I was driving up, trying to see what was going on.
Well,
And when,
it's-
on that one area that I did look through, you could tell what was behind it because I knew it was behind it.
It's convenient that this has come about during the summer months. I certainly invite you in the wintertime to come out and take a look at that. It is, as I said, the trees on the berm now are dead. They were put there, and to say that they will grow back, that's an absurd argument. But it's convenient that this came about in the summertime, whenever the leaves and the trees have grown out. But 8 months out of the year, it's not that way. But I think the true concern here is that, if one of our municipalities have already, experienced business with this company and was not satisfied and was taken advantage of, I think that's something that we should be wary of and something that we should take caution.
Well, I was contacted by Concord as well about it, and they said that they are still using the C&D, but they're also using another facility at the same time.
That's
So-
not the information I got. So.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
there's
sir.
one thing to point out, and I think it's something for all of us to remember, is that, we could put out for bids, and we can put them, what are we putting bids for? For people to come in and give us so they can get maybe we can choose one to do a memorandum of understanding to further discuss the concept. If we vote not to tonight, our vote is to discuss whether or not we're going to continue to discuss and try to work out the details. If these are issues, then certainly they'll come out in the whole due diligence process between us and the contractor that is coming to us with this proposal. And I think that if that comes out, then certainly that's something to be effect on it. But if we don't allow staff to do the discussion to start to discover some more of this stuff, then we won't be able to do anything. So if we don't vote to do it, then we're just shutting the whole thing down. And what we're saying is we're willing to force $2.8 million on the citizens of Cabarrus County this year to put money in to shut the landfill down. And I'm not prepared to do that. I'm prepared to let the discussion continue. We have, Mr. Grant is very capable, Mr. Day is very capable to look and protect the county's interest and make sure that, and going forward with this, if we work out an agreement with them, that these things will be addressed. I can't say, I've not been out there myself, but I do know that's, that if there's issues going on, then there's issues going on. But what I have to go on is what I have in front of me, and that's some reports all the way back to 2006 that says there were no violations. And, so, as far as I'm concerned, the staff should be allowed to continue to negotiate and look at this. There's something to be worked out here. If they get to the 11th hour and realize nothing can be worked out, then we certainly can go and find another solid waste contractor out there or recycling company that might be able to come in and do this same concept for us. But I think it's worth the time and the effort for the citizens of the county for us to pursue and look at how best possible way we can do this in a public-private partnership. And you're right, I don't have the personal issues with the Griffin brothers that maybe that you do, but
It's
but
not.
I think it's a business, but keep it professional and business level. that we have a business discussion with them on how that this can best be done, and that's what I feel like that we need to do.
Right, and I certainly agree with you. And whenever we, discuss the short-term shutdown, we've known this was coming. We've known we were going to have to pay this money, and to go in contract with a business of this nature and not know what 20 years, 30 years, we're going to be in a worse situation than the 1.8 million. And it's the safety of the citizens of Cabarrus County that we really first and foremost should be concerned about. If these citizens across the street are exposed to this, these citizens that will be out on Irish Potato Road, who knows what they'll be exposed to? We don't know what will be going on in there, and the county's going to be liable for this.
Well, the county is not going to be liable for this, Commissioner Measmer.
Whenever this company dissolves their corporation?
Commissioner Measmer, you did not hear what was said, and what was said was that the cost to close it can be put into a bond. That bonding company would stand in the place if something happens to that company. That company could have put up cash, and that cash would be used to close it out. And Diener's responsibility, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Grant, Diener's responsibility is that if it is an unsafe issue, if there is leakage into the water table, that they would go to that company and have them fix it. And if they don't fix it, that's what the bond is there for. That's what the cash is there for. So that this idea or this belief that it's going to come back to the county, one is it would not with that money being posted or that bond being posted, but two is that before we can get to that point, the contract will be in place, or the contract will be decided and will be presented to us for a decision at that point in time.
And so how much is going to be in this bond?
Well, that again, they need to go to Diener and they need to find out, or not Diener, but they need to find out what the closing is or whatever the contingencies are, and that would be what was negotiated between C&D or Highway 49 C&D as well as the county. So that is where that's the next step that we would take if this passes tonight. Those contingencies or those provisions of the contract would be negotiated as to what the amount is, or if it's going to be a bond, or who is it going to be.
What's protecting the county now if they were to close up out there on Highway 49?
Well, it's not the county, it's the city. It's Harrisburg's.
Somebody got to, if they close that landfill out there, whatever they're doing, somebody's got to be responsible for it if they walk off and leave it.
That's right, and it's just like it is with the county. And we have to put money aside. We have the county, ultimately the Board of Commissioners, have responsibility for that site because we're the permit holders. So in the case of this company, they're the permit holders. They have the same responsibilities.
How long have they been in Harrisburg?
We started out there.
Could you introduce yourself so everybody knows?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Ron Gilkerson, Greenwood Waste Solutions, good evening. We've been operating that site since early 2000. So we've been operating that as a construction demolition landfill, first and foremost. We went and permitted a Type 1 reprocessing facility, which is basically leaves and grass clippings and things of that nature that we generate a compost. And then from there, we've done a whole host of recycling efforts.
How many times have you been cited for noncompliance since you've been out there?
0. And I think that's in the record. And if I may.
Excuse me, when you say in the record, that is through North Carolina Diener or North Carolina Department of Environmental and Natural Resources.
That's correct. Okay. That is correct. And to answer your question, and to further that point a little bit with respect to financial assurance, we have to do the same thing that you all do, and that's post a performance bond. We have a performance bond out there at Highway 49, and we also have a $3 million remediation bond. So the total amount of financial assurance for 30-year post-closure is around $5 million.
Now, I rode down that street the other day, and all I seen was the bank you got the trees planted on is, 30 feet off the street?
Approximately.
And it's got trees planted on top of it. Is it not high enough? Is that the problem? People still see over it?
Well, I mean, the ordinance that we had to adhere to for the town of Harrisburg was to build a minimum 6-foot berm, and on that end of the street, it's probably 15 to 17 feet tall. So that's what we went over and above what was required of us on that end of the street. And if I may, just for the record too, there's a couple things, and we discussed a little bit of this in the workshop, so I don't want to bash it around too much, but originally we came before Cabarrus County some time ago, back in 1999. It was a requirement of the county that we build a berm along Mulberry Road, which at that time we did. When we went back to the town of Harrisburg, which we were annexed into, and we were in their jurisdiction, obviously. When we went back for our expansion, we told Harrisburg that we wanted to move our Type 1 reprocessing facility from behind our landfill to behind the berm along Mulberry Road, basically. And in doing so, they had asked us to advance the berm, in which we did. And we built it above board, and I think in your packet this evening, you got a letter from Josh Watkins, the zoning director, that basically says that we went above board. We didn't even have to extend it as far as we did. A couple key things, and you know, I really don't know what we have going with Mr. Meismer, but obviously we don't have something going that's positive. Purple water, it's not existent. Basically everything, as you guys have traveled around Mulberry Road, that's an up gradient direction. I mean, even if we discharged anything, it would flow down gradient towards the creek. It wouldn't flow up along Mulberry Road. We don't have any ponded purple water. You know, when we grind, we make sure that there is limited wind. We put provisions in place to where when we basically screen the product into the fine material, it is now conveyed into a lean-to building that has sides on it to keep down the dust. I mean, there's various and sundry things that we do in our daily operation. The other thing, too, is that that's very bothersome is your point about the City of Concord, which that's the first time we've ever heard that. Mr. Alan Scott and myself and Mr. Griffin have had a great relationship. Obviously, he's with the City of Concord. He chose to start sending some of his product to Wallace Farm, so we still do business with the City of Concord. It's the first time we've ever heard that we overcharged them by $100,000, and as a matter of fact, if we had have, Mr. Alan Scott wouldn't have called me last week, and we've got a meeting with him in the morning at 10 o'clock to re-engage. So where Mr. Meismer is coming up with some of these things, we don't know. We'd like to have a meeting with him and try to find out what his agenda is, but it's not for Greenway Waste Solutions, obviously. And if there's any questions, please, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Well, my experience with government is every time you find out what the rules and regulations are, they're going to change them, so you don't know what's going on anyway, so.
I would like to just clarify on my motion that it does include subject to review or revision by the county attorney and the county staff. I didn't finish that, so I do want to make sure that that is part of the motion.
I have before us what I understand is a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between Cabarrus County and Greenway Waste Solutions, subject to review and revisions by the county attorney. I do not remember if we got a second.
I'd like to say one more thing before we...
I'm going to get to you. Okay, Commissioner Caruth has seconded it. Any further discussion? Commissioner Meismer.
I had conversations with Mr. Scott last week, and he said that they were going to perhaps presume discussions with you. So I know what I was told from him, and I know exactly what I was told, and I had those conversations with him, so I know what I was told, and I know exactly what's going on. For this board to go forward with this company, knowing what we know, is a big mistake, I have to contend. I talked with NC Diener about the purple water and about the dust blowing, the gypsum board particles blowing, and they're very concerned, and they're going to follow up into it. So,
And we welcome that inspection.
Good, thank you. We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Motion carries 3-2. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next we have is G4, is the presentation of the proposed fiscal year 2012 Cabarrus County budget. Mr. Day.
I'll make this very short. You were all presented your budgets. The budget was prepared according to the board's direction to the staff, or request to the staff that happened in February at the board meeting, and that was that the budget match as closely as possible the projection that was in this year's 5-year plan. So the budget that is proposed for next fiscal year is within $400,000 of this the year's projection. It maintains a tax rate of 63 cents. The remainder of the 5-year plan, again, is consistent with the board's direction. It freezes spending roughly at the level of 2012 and maintains the tax burden at the equivalent level. And we look forward to working with the board and going through this very long document that's now compressed to a very small file on this drive. But we'll be here to answer your questions. Also, along the way, if anything should arise as you're perusing the budget document. And we have our first meeting next week.
That's what I was about to mention. That's what I was going to mention, is we have budget workshop on May the 24th, May 31st, and June the 1st. These are all budget workshops, and they begin at 3:30 in the afternoon in the multipurpose room. I believe that there are slotted times for various agencies that are going to be presenting to us, specifically on May 31st and possibly on June the 1st. May the 24th is typically we are receiving an overview of the budget, but I believe that's the schedule is right now. Any questions for Mr. Day? Thank you very much. And
Just to clarify, this is posted on the county's website?
I haven't checked. If it's not, it will be there very shortly.
So for any citizens that wish to look at the budget, all you need to do is go to the county's website, www.cabarruscounty.us, go under Government and Board of Commissioners is where I presume it will be, though it may be on the...
That's under finance. I've got it right here.
I understand it went up at 6.
Ms. Pooh, it may be better wait for, I don't know, they're about to talk about the update of the website
Are you
going
gonna
live
talk
next
about it
week,
when
so
you
it may
talk
be in a
about the
different
website?
location than that.
Okay. Will it be on the homepage, so it's really easy to find? Okay. Just go to www.cabarruscounty.us after Friday, or sometime Friday, and it'll be there for you to click on and look at, and I'm sure plenty of people will have comments.
If I could add too, that it's very important, because I think we have a crowd here, and I think the people sitting in the room tonight probably equals the amount of people in 11 years that I've seen come to our budget meetings. I know they're not exciting, but that's where we really discuss what's going on, and this is the most important thing we do every year as Board of Commissioners, is pass the budget. The public hearing will be in June. The budget hearings, those things when we talk about, we ask questions. I beg the citizens to ask questions, because I know that the big issue that is on everybody's mind, and is in a lot of anger over the last 2 years, that have led to, groups around the country forming up about how much government is spending. Well, we're not Washington, and we're not Raleigh here. But still, it's best to understand how the budget works and how our county budget works. So you know the difference between a capital improvement plan and general fund. So you can understand when we talk about fund balance, what we mean by fund balance. And those kind of things are the stuff that it's so easy to get confused on, but it's something very important that people get involved. And if we start talking about, as we're moving towards next year, in a reval year, is how, not just if we see reduced revenues from reval, is how we're going to make up that gap. And you've got to be involved now to understand where we have to go to find money and where we have to go to cut if we have to start cutting budgets. And it's not a matter of, and the numbers some of us have seen, it's not going to be a matter of how much or how we're going to fund a program. It's whether or not we're going to continue to fund a program. I mean, it's to that point. It would be to that point. So I think it's very important that as citizens, you understand fully what the county fund. And remember, the number one thing in our whole, as far as our mission statement is concerned, is that our job is to administer the programs of the state of North Carolina, and we're a political subdivision of the state of North Carolina, which really restricts counties a lot on what they can do and what they can't do with our money. So understand that.
Well, I think also the one thing that's important, and it ties into what's the referendum that's coming on tomorrow, is sales tax. Is that sales tax, if it passes, would provide revenues of approximately $4.6 million that would supplant some things that we just did not have a crystal ball to be able to say. It shows that in Raleigh, they're talking about changing the lottery proceeds to where it's going from
30 or 40%, I believe, of the revenues down to 10% from the lottery proceeds, which would mean a reduction in our what we'd receive from the education lottery fund that we have been using for some of the construction for schools. Another is the sales taxes. The overall sales tax has gone down a little bit, so that those are where we are looked at getting pinched, and it's through no fault of our own in regards to planning and preparing. What we have the opportunity is to implement a revenue source that is covered by everybody, that whether you own property or not, and plus, I believe over 4 million people have visited Cabarrus County just in the last year that would be able to help in that regards. And we are upon ourselves limited the time of year, or the term of years, which is 20 years, as well as the scope of the proceeds going to capital improvements at schools. So, we would certainly ask that you thoughtfully consider, and also vote. I would ask you to vote for it, because I think it's the prudent thing to do. And I believe that we will have some, again, we'll be here next year trying to decide what do we do with next year's budget, but I believe that with the 5-year plan, we will have the opportunity possibly to come back with, with a plan next year that is going to be worked out, is going to be discussed, and is going to be talked about quite a bit. So I would encourage everybody to come out to our meetings on May the 31st, on May 24th, May 31st, and June the 1st. Any other comments? Thank you. Going on to the next one is the Communication and Outreach new website. I will turn this over to Mrs. Hawkins for presentation.
Just a moment while I change this.
You forgot your password?
No, actually, this is logged on to you. And I'm not sure how to.
I think she needs keys.
Logged on to you. Do you mind? I'm sorry.
At least we know you don't know Kay's password, and
Yeah.
that would be a good thing, that you don't know her password.
They should know the internal IT procedures are sound in Cabarrus County.
Well, good evening. I wanted to give you a sneak peek at Cabarrus County's new website. It will not be live until Friday, May 20th. I'm going to give you kind of a sneak peek at what we have right now. We're still doing some tweaks, but most of the bulk of the website is out there. So after Friday, you may see a few minor changes, but for the most part, this is our new site. I wanted to give you a couple of statistics before I kind of unveil the new site. Cabarrus County is one of the most digitally savvy counties in the entire state of North Carolina, with close to 90% of households online. And our recent citizens survey from last fall found that 50% of county residents have visited our website, and that more than 25% of those residents go there regularly and use that as a main source of information for Cabarrus County news. So our website really is one of our most important communication tools for communicating regularly with the public. Now, our current site, which we all are familiar with, is about 5 years old, which is absolutely a dinosaur in website age. And technology, or so much has changed in that amount of time. It was a wonderful site. We won awards for it back in January of 2006. But a lot of technology has changed, and a lot of people have more expectations now of more instantaneous updates, navigation changes, things like that. So it was time for a change. With that, I will give you a little sneak peek here. So this is the homepage of the new Cabarrus County website, and I will just kind of scroll down, give you a quick look. here. I'm not sure why our video is not playing. Our video box is not playing down there for some reason. I apologize for that. Oh, there it is. So this is the homepage of the new Cabarrus County website. What we did, we reorganized the data. So it's designed to really give you a quick look at all the information that we have on the site. The top banner, which I am scrolling over with my mouse now, we are grouping information by resident, by business, by government, by news and events, and then we have added a section called I Want To. So very quickly here in the I Want To section, you can quickly click on I want to apply for, so you can apply for a permit, so forth. I want to change maybe my voter registration, I want to contact, I want to find. So if we click on one of these, you will get information there on some quick links on how to find different pieces of information. We also have, for example, I want to get involved, I want to go green, I want to pay, that would be paying our taxes, water bills, child support, that type of thing. As we scroll back over to the resident section, you will see that we have this also grouped topically. A lot of citizens simply don't know what department different information resides in. So instead of making them try to figure out where that information is, we're grouping the information topically. So under the resident section, we have it grouped by public safety, home and property, voting and elections, going green, education, recreation, family services, senior services, and then getting involved. So if you click perhaps like on the public safety, you will find that we have all the public safety organizations grouped there, and then they will also have updates directly on that page as well. So everything aggregates the data so that when it's posted once, we can send it out on different places throughout the site where someone may be looking for that information. We also have a business section, which we have links to doing business with Cabarrus County. So that's if an organization wants to actually do business with the Cabarrus County government. That's where we have our RFPs and RFQs, our policies, things like that. We have a new section called Building Your Business, which is kind of a resource to help folks that are new to the county or wanting to expand their current business, what tools they need. We have sustainability as well as information on the economic grant program. Then under government, we have our county department directory. So you can still, if you look at the left navigation here, we have every department name listed. So if you do know what department you're looking for, you can go to this page and find your specific department, and that's where they have all the information that is specific to that department. Also under government, we have the public officials, which of course is represented not just the Board of Commissioners, but all of our elected bodies within Cabarrus County as a quick resource there. We have our county boards and committees, the profile, codes and ordinances, and other information, public meetings, and so forth. Under news and events, this is where you will find largely information that our communications and outreach office produces, news releases as well as video programming, our neighborhood outreach program, this our public records request, our photo gallery, which is where individuals can find photos of the boards and department heads, our County Government 101 program, etc. If we go back to the welcome page, this website also was created to give folks a really quick look at information. So under the photos there that you see, we have a couple of sections. First, we have the news section, which is just the most recent news releases that have been sent out. Then we have public meetings, which is going to give information on when the next public meetings are. with all of the different boards and committees throughout the county, not just the Board of Commissioners. Hot Topics, which here you see the budget under Hot Topics, so that's where you would go to get the budget information. Programs and events, which highlight some things that different county departments are doing, and then some of our major county initiatives. Again, we are going to be adding to this and enhancing this as we go forward. As you scroll to the bottom, we have our video link where you can scroll over and see all the most recent videos, our popular links, and then we have some informational bar right there that gives pertinent information that we can change out as well. At the top, we have our Contact Us page, which is a much more robust listing that we have ever had before, where you can search by departments, by the department name. You also can do an employee search. So, for example, I will just type in my name. And you will get, there I'm displaying my phone number for everyone to see. So you'll get that information there, so you can do that for any employee. And then a new feature that we have, which is another thing, when we are going through this very long process, a 1.5-year process with our website, we were trying to address questions that we typically get, questions that our webmaster is constantly getting questions on us. People are, I can't find this information on the website. One of those things is directions to facilities. And so we have this section here that gives the directions to all of our main facilities, and then on each department page, they also will have a map that will show exactly where their location is as well. Going back, I just wanted to mention a couple of things that we really tried to incorporate in this design, and it was a huge, huge team effort. The project team consisted of myself and 4 individuals from ITS. Nick Rogers, who couldn't be here tonight, he's the project manager who's done a wonderful job in really coordinating the entire effort. Debbie Brannon, Brad Udi, and Marcy Jones. In addition to that core team, we worked with every single department throughout the county and many, many, many employees because they are going to be the ones that are actually updating information on these pages. So it's going to allow us, instead of filtering through a small number of people in a lot of cases, we have opened it up so a lot more employees in departments can update information, so we will have more instantaneous information available. We wanted to, through this, some of our goals were better communication, eliminating the need to know which department, also to be able to maintain individual web sections while allowing the information to aggregate to the different portals, which I showed, improving transparency, providing more online tools and resources, improving the findability and navigation and search, and also more interactivity. So we have created, you'll see our Stay Informed little box at the top, which is all of our social media. In addition to that, if you go on any page of the website, if you see where I'm pointing here, you'll see a like button. So you can like this page, and if you are signed up to Facebook, you can send that information directly to your own online community. So if you find something helpful or interesting, that's an easy way for you to share that with your own friends and family.
That's liking that actual portal. So that if you were to hit like, it likes the voting in the elections.
That's correct, and each page will have that. So if there's specific information on any page, you can like that, and it'll go to your Facebook, so that specific information will be posted. And again, this will be online Friday, May 20th. So we invite everyone to go to cabarruscounty.us and check it out. We also have at the top of the page a Rate This page. So We do encourage folks to let us know what they think about the new website, and we're always, it is a work in progress always, so we welcome feedback and comments, and we will try to integrate as much of that as possible. I also wanted to give special thanks. Most of the photos on the site were taken by a local photographer, Chad Mitchell, so we are very happy to have some beautiful photography on our site as well. Any questions on that?
Thank you for the hard work. I know that it's been a number of, late days or late nights and a lot of angst, but I appreciate everything. It looks really good.
We are very fortunate to have a very talented IT staff who has worked very diligently on all the back end of this. So we're pretty proud of it. Thank you.
Also, please send appreciation to Mr. Mitchell for the pictures he's made. Those are very good pictures.
Thank you. It looks great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next matter that we have is G6, which is 222 on our agenda. It's a resolution requesting assistance with the extension of Raging Ridge Road. This is, I was contacted last week by Chairperson Blackwelder from the Cabarrus County School System, as well as Mr. Whitkey in regards to a resolution, if we would consider passing a resolution asking the General Assembly for allocation of at least $250,000 in discretionary funds to assist in the construction of Raging Road extension. We had this presented, not the resolution, but we had the issue presented to us, I think in the last 60 days, at one of our work sessions about the need for building that, and I think at that point in time I had brought up with Mr. Marshall if there's a way to also help out with the flooding issues over in Middleton, which they said that could be looked into. But Mr. Whitkey is here, Mr. Marshall is here if y'all have any questions specifically, but this is just a resolution to be adopted if it passes, to ask the General Assembly for the allocation of these monies to help for the extension of the Raging Road out at Hickory Ridge Middle and Hickory Ridge High School. Any questions for myself or the other gentleman? Do we have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So moved.
We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I believe that takes care of all of the new business that we have on our agenda. Mrs. Honeycutt? Okay. We're going to H, which is the appointments to boards. Under number 1 is the appointments to the Cabarrus County Youth Council. We have a motion to appoint Georgie Ziami, I apologize if I mispronounced it, to the Cabarrus County Youth Council as an at-large representative for a 2-year term ending February the 21st, 2013, and to correct the ending terms for Mr. Isaiah Alexander to February 21st, 2013, Ian Smith to February 21st, 2012, and Mr. Cameron Watson, February 21st, 2012.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The next is H2, is the appointment to the Food Policy Council. Do we have a motion? Well, let's make certain we get this right. We have a motion to appoint Kate Brunn and Mary Blakeney to the Food Policy Council to complete unexpired terms ending December 31st, 2012, including an exemption to the multiple service provision of the appointment policy for Mrs. Blakeney, and appoint Wade Holland to the alternate to the Food Policy Council for a 1-year term ending December 31st, 2012, and a motion to reset the remainder terms of initial appointment to reflect 1, 2, or 3-year terms ending December 31st, 2011, 2012, and 2013, respectively.
So moved. Better, well said.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is appointment to the Jury Commission. We have a motion to reappoint Phyllis Crump to the Jury Commission for a 2-year term ending June 30th, 2013, including an exemption to the appointment policy.
That is on page 251.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Next is the appointment to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. Do we have a motion to appoint Catherine Fitzgerald to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council to fill the substance abuse professional position for a 2-year term ending June 30th, 2013? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We also have this is found on page 320 of our agenda. This is one of the additions as it relates to the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee. Do we have a motion to appoint Mrs. Esther Turner to the Adult Care Home Community Advisory Committee for an initial 1-year term ending May 31st, 2012? We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. There are several boards, as Mrs. Hawkins talked about earlier, as well as we talk about it every month, that we need to get filled, we'd like to get filled. If you would please consider looking at that, and it is on the current Cabarrus County website under cabarruscounty.us under boards and committees, and it'll also be under the new website. If you'll please look for the different boards, and if you have any interest in there, please express it. Or you can contact the county manager's office at 920-2100, and somebody will be able to help you. With that, there are a number of positions that are coming up in June, so there are a number of boards that have some positions that need to be filled or need to be replaced. If you please consider that as well. At this time, is there any mention from the board members for different liaisons or any comments?
Just a couple, Mr. Chairman. Right on that same vein with the, as far as boards committees are concerned, the APAC will be meeting the next couple of weeks. And one of the things that we also will be discussing is we've got 4 members coming up for reappointment in June. And I put the word out to the community. Anybody would like to serve on that committee, please get your applications in. We've got a couple that were tied to organizations, and people that were on the committee that were with those organizations have left those organizations. So there will be some new folks being appointed to that. But that will be in June. We also are still looking for a veterinarian to serve on that committee as well. So if there's any veterinarian out there that would like to get involved in that or put their application in for that, we would certainly appreciate that. Also, if you'll just note the date, June 24th, it's a Friday. That afternoon, there will be the grand opening of the new area office for Piedmont Behavioral Health Care, or PBH as it's come to be known. And it's also the retirement recognition for Dan Coughlin, who's the area director, been the area director for 10 years. And there won't be formal invitations go out to every commissioner, but I've been told that I'm responsible for inviting our board and others to attend. So if you would be like to attend, it's open to you to come out.
I think that starts at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
So, yep, okay.
Goes till approximately 5.
That's it. So.
Anything else?
You're ahead of me. That's it.
Commissioner Meismer? Commissioner Burge? I do want to call everybody's attention that last Thursday, on May the 12th, there was a showing of the movie Fresh that I believe that Commissioner Burge was able to attend. I think it was represented by the community. There was about 450 people there. There was not many seats down below on the first floor of the gym, and there was a lot of, it was filled up.
It was a very interesting, good movie, too. If you hadn't seen it, you ought to go see it.
Well,
try to see it.
I think it's a very big opportunity, and I think that my hat's off to the Food Policy Council that worked there, but it was also Victoria out at the Cabarrus Health Alliance. She had her hand in well, she is the one that coordinated all of this. Healthy Cabarrus did a phenomenal job, and my hat's off to them. They really did an amazing job, and I was talking to a lot of people that this has been shown at different places in Charlotte and different areas, and this was about the best attended throughout all the showings that they have been a participant of.
And if you go see it, you might want to quit eating meat.
I should mention there's several copies of that movie available at the library, and you can check it out there if you haven't seen it.
The other thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is last week, the Chamber, or actually the EDC, brought in Mr. Schuman for a presentation that Commissioner Meismer was able to attend, as well as myself. And I thought it was on Friday. It was very telling. It was very good. And there seems to be a misconception out there that the efforts of Mr. Schuman trying to help out and work with the Sustainable Local Economic Council is in direct contrast to the EDC, which is not the point, not the case, and not reality. In reality, I think, when you're talking about economic development, you're talking about a lot of different things. It's very diverse, and it almost seems like it's a moving target. And what we are trying to do is work in conjunction with the EDC to create a better environment, or to have a good environment for our local businesses, for our medium-sized businesses, for businesses that want to come in here. And I think that all of that works well together. I think that we have all tried hard, and I think that we are succeeding in doing and accomplishing a lot through the economic development on a lot of different levels. So we will look forward to seeing a lot of good coming out of that, and I know that that's a one-year contract, that we should be having some updates on that as well. So my hat's off to the EDC and bringing him here, as well as the Sustainable Local Economy Council under the tutelage of Shannon, doing a fantastic job. Thank you. With that, do we have a motion to go into closed session to, let's see here, to discuss matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the area served by the public body as authorized by North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11, subsection A, subsection 4. Do we have a second? We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Motion carries.